John Vanderveer here, software engineer with 10 years of experience and PhD in economics, where I studied the return to post-secondary alternative credentials, so economics of education. And as a software engineer, I use GPT-4 almost daily, and I think it's underrated for research purposes. So I'm writing a new academic paper studying the productivity of GPT-4 in the particular case of published quality economic research using GPT-4 in particular with plugins and using state-of-the-art prompt engineering to really max out the production curve of the state-of-the-art for AI tools, and trying to see at this precipice of technology, is it good enough to write a publishable paper? Calibrating the productivity. This is the second stream of, I'm streaming all day. I'll be streaming, I think 3, maybe 4 streams. The first one was basically data wrangling. Done a bunch of pre-work to basically get samples and background literature review all together. This is the fun stream where we get to do exploratory data analysis in about 10 or 20 minutes. We do need to finish up some very last steps of wrangling, but we're almost there. And then we'll get to play around. And then the following stream will be drafting the paper itself. Okay, so to do next, finish wrangling and then EDA. By the way, this green spot here is a tip from the American writer. Oh, there's a drink. Hemingway. So I finished up and then I wrote the to-do list before I took my break. So Hemingway would famously end his writing for the day mid-sentence so that he knew exactly where to pick up the next morning. This is a great general productivity tip is don't tie all the loose ends. Leave a loose end. Leave a loose end in your work, and that will help you pick back up, as it did with us. So we want to finish wrangling. So here we are. This is open source. I'll briefly show you. Here's the calibration study design. This is open for all to comment on. Should be available in the video description. And then here, this is all open source, open data, with the exception of the participant, like personally identifiable email address and so forth. But with an obfuscated participant ID, everything else is open. Okay. And this is where you can find it. In the research dissertation case for alt ed repository, this is, I did, I already have my PhD. I did my dissertation a while ago, but I just put all my papers here now. So it's actually not just the dissertation. I've thought about changing the name, but then I'm worried that it might break links in some places. But now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it will break any important links, actually. Maybe just a few working papers, nothing published. Okay. So maybe I'll change the name of it to just be like research or something. And in this repository, we are going to look at the CSV file in particular, the main.csv. Okay. So here it is, and there are some issues with it. Notice, for example, inconsistent casing across the U's, capital U, lowercase u. Okay, space characters. So the first 2 steps are we're going to purge spaces, and we are going to capitalize all the letters. Then we are going to split these multi-answer answers. Okay, so Doc 10 rating, this is the respondent rating for document 10. But the rating is a 3-partite rating. It's a tripartite rating. The first letter is the education level they believe the author has, whether it's undergraduate, master's, or PhD or higher. And I'm just now seeing no one thought that Doc 10 was a P. Okay, but there's a P over here. And maybe that's because Doc 10 is not a P. I actually forget who the author was. What are the other components of that? Let's take a look in what are the second and third sub-values mean? We'll take a look in the main MD, which explains the main CSV. Let me look over here in the chat. RF says, what's up, John? Hey, RF. How's it going? Thanks for good to see you again. If you're on TikTok, you can go over to YouTube. Link is in the bio and see the full screen. Okay, so the rating questions. What education level does the writer appear to have? Rate the article for quality. So you can appear to have a low education level and still it could be high quality. And then the likelihood that the article is written by GPT. So this is a fairly secondary interest. It's interesting, but it's of secondary interest. Basically, the question here is, can people tell when it's written by AI? Or more precisely, can people tell when it's written by GPT-4? Okay. But that is a somewhat, that's a distinct question from, is it of publishable quality? We can imagine a world where systems are in place to detect that it's written by AI, and that if it's written by AI, it's somehow flagged or banned or not allowed. But that is like a kind of like a side concern for publication. The main concern is the article written well and following academic guidelines and whatnot? And that would seem to be indicated by the top two. So I think the P is the main indicator if it seems to be written by a PhD. But we all know articles written by PhDs that would not be published. And so I think you actually want a two-way indication, and that gets you some robustness in there, right? Which is like, either way you slice it, we have two somewhat independent indicators. They could be, there's going to be some cross-correlation for sure. But there's going to be imperfect cross-correlation, which is to say some degree of independence. And some degree of robustness then. And so we want to check both of those. And then the third thing is, I think, sort of just like an interesting side question. So with that in mind, let's get to the wrangling. So what we do, we could do this in our own Python scripts, but I will use GPT-4 instead. Now, do I want to capitalize all columns or only those which follow the pattern doc-glob rating? Doc-glob rating. I actually don't care. I don't care if you capitalize these. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. Arv says, I hope your day is going well. Love listening to you. It is going well. I'm glad to hear you say that. So for all I care, we can just capitalize all the letters. I don't see what difference it makes. Can we follow the same rule of space purging? Can we space purge in all? It inhibits the readability a touch to purge this space, for example. A graduate degree becomes a graduate degree. So it's going to inhibit the readability a bit, but it is not going to disturb the categorical nature of the analysis. There's still going to be proper categoricals. And I can also purge the periods. But I should do that with care because some of these user value submissions, I noticed, use a period in lieu of the comma. Let's see if I can find an example for you. Yeah. So see, this user used periods in lieu of the comma. I think I can just manually, I think I'll just manually change that, huh? What do you think? It looks like there's only 18 periods in the entire file. Let me change this then. So I'm manually changing this file, adding the double quote delimiters, swapping the interior periods for commas. Okay. Here's another case. Wrap that in the double quotes, comma. Comma. Now there's 12 periods to be found. Let's look around for those. PhD, 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 PhD. And here is a value case. We'll swatch that. Now we are seeing another value case already wrapped with the double quotes here. Period. Period. And so these are all from the phrase PhD. So I think I can just purge all the periods at this point. I don't know that we need to use GPT for this at all, actually. We'll just purge the periods. Okay? So we're purging the periods. And then what about the space characters? Can I simply just purge them? Let's go through and look. 262 of these bad boys. Still, I'm just looking at them, and I don't see anything harmed in the making of this video. Like, the only negative effect I can see is that it will make reading the education level harder. But I think any researcher, I think it's going to be very, very clear when they read through like it's education level, and it might take them a second to fix their eyes or whatever, but it'll be very clear that it's a graduate degree, all squished together. I don't know. I'm partial to letting them be distinctly cased. I'm partial to letting them be distinctly cased. I am. So then, thanks for the follow, Nicholas. So then I would prefer to unicase only the doc glob rating values. Onward and upward. Let's do it. Okay, so Command Z, Command Shift Z. So we're purging the periods by hand. So I'm staging this. I'm staging this file. I'm looking at the changes. We have some row changes. And these should be period to comma. And then also removing periods. So this is a feature remove periods. Remove periods. Okay, push that up. Next, what are we doing? Right click, close others. Next, we are going to purge spaces. Command C, Command F. Replace all cases and just purge spaces. So here's a feature, purge spaces. Okay, so that's done. Now this is the file I'm going to say to ChatGPT. We're going to close that. We're going to do this different main file. And the instructions are simple. For any column matching the pattern, doc glob rating, capitalize the value. Very simple instruction for ChatGPT to follow. We should be able to easily verify whether it was correct or not. And there's a high degree of expected success here. We can look at the literal Python it uses here. Well, I guess not very well. So each step that it did, so it took several steps there, and it only showed the last step, unfortunately. But anyway, here's the downloads folder and the data folder. So I'm clicking modified main. I'm dragging into the data folder. Here I am looking at modified main, and I'm visually inspecting. Paul says, why not just do that in Pi? You could have written that faster. No, I could not have written that faster. I could not have written that faster. Okay, and yeah, we see that the values are properly capitalized, and the education levels and the yes/no Boolean for with econ degree are left alone. as intended. Okay, so we go over here, and we will delete main and rename modified main as just main. So this is just main now. Now I can look at the difference here, and we can see not all rows were changed, and that is what we expect. So some of the rows already had capital letters, right? In fact, I might have downcased all of them, and that would seem to produce less noise. But basically just sanity checking that the values are the same. So U to U, M to M, U, 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 M, U, 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 M. Great. Here on line 12, we can see M, U, U, M, U. Here on the right on line 12, M, U, U, M, U. So the sanity check passes, and it appears to have done just what's instructed. You can also notice some highlighting differences. There is a more intense or vibrant color here on the letter P compared to 10, and that indicates that the value P was changed and not the letter 10. So that's some additional just visual scanning that I'm doing. Paul says skill issue. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the skill issue. Feet, uppercase letters. Great, so that looks good. What data is that? Says the TikTok genius. This is participant response to my survey. And my survey asks a variety of questions, and they're described here. Basically asking them to read some essays from a variety of authors and asking them about the quality of those essays. So here are some of the essays, and you might read this one, for example. They're all intended to be one page. Thereabout. I mean, here you can see it went, I don't know. This is a citation. So the essay itself was maybe 80% of a page, and the references spilled over a line. And the question is, what education level do you think the writer has? Rate the quality, scale of 1 to 10 of the article. And do you think it was written by AI? Those are the 3 questions for each essay. And what we want to do is we want to basically assess if GPT written papers are publishable. Now, why didn't I just ask the question directly? Do you think this paper is of publishable quality? The reason I did not ask that question is because most respondents don't know what a publishable paper looks like. So most respondents do not have a PhD. Some do. I think it was 5. I think I had 5 out of 30 with a PhD. So a significant number of the proportion of the sampled group. But most people were like undergraduate level or less, and they're just not in a good position to judge whether it's publishable or not. But what they can do is they can still just give an overall assessment of the quality in their opinion, 1 to 10. And that I would expect would correlate. All right, thanks for the questions. Okay, so closing this. This is all open source at research, the repository you can see right here. Thanks for the follow. And quick reminder, if you're on TikTok, you can go to Twitch or YouTube and see the full screen. If you're getting anything out of the video, please tap the like button so the algorithm will send it to all the people. Okay. So I think it's time for oh, we need to split the tripartites. Okay. So I'll take this context that describes the data file. Consider this markdown file that describes the data file. Based on this, rating questions are of most interest? How do you suggest we split the rating questions? Should we simply split, let me give one example. Doc 10 Doc 1 rating into these. Doc 1 rating underscore edu writer edu level. I think this is what I want to do, unless the GPT pushes back with a compelling reason. I'm going to split it this way. Doc 1 rating quality, Doc 1 rating GPT author. Did I ask about written by AI or ask about written by GPT? I did, specifically GPT-4. Remember to apply this transformation consistently. No, bro, you do it. Proceed to make the transform. Cheating, are we? What's up, Eddie? This is not cheating. I'm so ready for society to get past the idea that using AI is cheating. We are doing research. We are evaluating GPT-4 productivity. There's actually no way to assess GPT-4 productivity without using GPT-4. Okay, so you are using it to learn alongside. Nope, we're not learning here. We are doing academic research. Well, you could kind of say that we're learning in the sense that we are doing an exploratory data analysis and it's doing some of the legwork. So I guess that counts as learning. Have you tried Cursor? Yep. Yeah, I'm on the Cursor Discord. I've contributed a lot to the discussion. It's not quite there yet. They still need Turbo, last I checked. Okay, so let's look through what it did. First of all, what was the error? There was an issue with the transform. The error suggests a mismatch in the number of columns. This could be due to the entries not having exactly 3 comma separated values. Yep. That's right. There are cases where there were partial responses. Most have 3 comma separated values. However, some contain rows with a different number of elements, specifically 2 or 4 in some cases. 4 I did not expect. 4 I did not expect. Let's see. We might need to throw 4 out. That could be, so 2 would be a partial response. We can accept that, but 4 we might need to throw out. 2, 1 or 2 values in a tripartite cell would be a partial response, which we can accept. 4 is unexpected and might call for being thrown out. What was the participant ID for the cells with 4 values? Should say what were, but anyway. Okay, so we know that it's one of these columns, 13, 14, 4, and 9. So let's go ahead and look through there. So we'll start with 13. So 13 is this orange color. So that's the rainbow CSV helping us look through. And as I scan through 13, I don't see. Oh, look at that. There's an illegal character. Okay, so that fixes that issue. Someone just hit a wrong key besides a comma. That's fine. So I think that would have been the cell in question. GPT, if parsing by comma, would notice 2 values, but in fact there were 3. So it's 13, 14. Let's now inspect 14. Right, and here there are not 4 values. There is simply an extra comma, okay? I feel extremely fine making that manipulation. So will it say 14 row 3? Will it say 14 row 3? Yeah. In the original data set, doc 14 rating column contained a cell with 4 values, participant ID 3. So that's the one we've just corrected, no problem at all. Yeah, that's fine. 13, 14, we're scanning through 14 for any other abnormalities. Seems fine. Great. So 13, 14, 4, and 9. Let's now inspect 4 and 9. 4 will be this green color. And here I can see someone missed a comma. Someone missed a comma. Okay. So the good news here is in no case was there actually a partial response observed. Even though we could deal with that if needed, it just seems like typos, 4 and 9, which is totally fine. So for 9, we're looking at a royal blue prior to a red. So here's red educational level, here's the royal blue. So we're scanning through this. And there's a semi instead of a comma. Okay, so we're swapping the semi for a comma. And I see no other abnormalities. Clear your workspace. I have manually fixed the source, or I've manually fixed the main.csv. Perform the disaggregation on 3 subvalue doc glob rating cells or columns. I guess it could work either way. Perform the disaggregation on 3 subvalue doc glob rating cells using this new attached main.csv. Cool. And to the earlier, there was an earlier commenter who was remarking that there was a task that I could have done faster by hand. There are some such tasks, as you can see. That would have been extremely painful to get GPT to figure out. In one case, there was an apostrophe. In another case, there was a semicolon. In another case, there were no separation at all. It was like 74, I think it was, that should have had comma between. Would have been quite tricky to get GPT-4 to recognize those, but it was really easy to do by hand, wasn't it? So some people who are too far in support of AI quiver at the idea of doing anything by hand. They'd like to automate everything, and GPT is the smartest possible machine. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. So that's outrageous. But the idea that you can do anything faster by hand is like equally outrageous, perhaps more outrageous. So this will be fix some typos. Fix some typos. Great. Reminder, if you're on TikTok, you can go to YouTube or Twitch. Link is in my bio and see the full screen. If you're enjoying the video, throw a like on it so the algorithm will send it to other viewers. Here we'll download the transformed version. Here's the downloads folder. Here's the data file. Dragging this over. Kiki, thank you for the follow. Here I have the transformed new. Going to close this, delete my current main, and rename the transformed new into main. Now I should be able to observe the differences. And in fact, basically every file is going to be different. Every file is going to be different here. This will be somewhat tricky to validate. Let's see. So I will pull 10 random, quasi-random entries, and we'll compare for equality. I can just scan like this, actually. So here's participant 2. So the participant ordering is the same. That's good. So on the left, I see U2, 1, U3, 2. And on the right, I see U2, 1, U3, 2. So the values are preserved, they're split. Great. All right, let's jump down 11, U5, 7, U6, 7. 11, U5, 7, U6, 7. Great. 20, M10, 8. 20, M10, 8. All right, we're doing good. Here I'll go to 30, and I'll scroll over a bit. Let's see, where can I go? I can just go right to left. So here's 30. On the right, we see P74, P63. So basically the order is preserved of those fields, which is really nice. U42, U42, P85, U42, P85, U66, P85. Okay, they match. All right, great. Clay, Happy New Year. Thanks for being here. So here we're going to say feature disaggregate rating fields. Disaggregate rating fields is what we're doing. Jason, thank you for the follow. Okay, with this data, we can now do some stuff. Given this data, graph the responses for doc, I don't know, 4. Let's see if I can pick an interesting doc. An interesting doc will be one that I know is written by GPT. 8, for example, I know is written by GPT. Ben Leo, how are you so smart? I'm not, Ben, thank you. I'm not. It's just a bunch of work, and then it appears smart to you, you know? That's the trick of expertise. We spend a lot of time doing something that's relatively niche, and then it's sort of just unexpected to people who haven't been there. Kind of like magic in that way, I think. Given this data, graph the responses for doc 8. Graph the rating responses for doc 8. What percent of people believe it is written by GPT? What is the distribution of quality responses? What is, yeah, let's go with that. What's your stack? Well, we're doing data analysis, so it's 100% Python. Sean says, do you have to subscribe in GPT chat or is it free? You have to pay. This is GPT-4. Very important nuance that's not only missed by a lot of the population, it's also missed by a lot of the academy. So a lot of people will talk about ChatGPT hallucinating, and they will be talking about 3.5, which is substantially inferior to a GPT-4. It's not even in the same model class. So GPT 3.5 is a large language model. GPT-4 is a multimodal model. You see how it's drawn a graph? GPT 3.5 would not do that. Is that updated GPT? Sort of, you can think of it that way, yeah. Okay, let's see. Approximately 27% of respondents believe that document 8 was written by GPT. That means people cannot tell when it's written by GPT. Look at that. Oh, wow. And that is a rating above a 5, which is eminently reasonable because it's a scale of 1 to 10. Now there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 6, 7. There's sort of like a mean bias here. Where people are picking 5, and I think they're doing that because 5 feels like the middle of 1 and 10, but it's actually not the middle of 1 and 10, is it? It's below the middle. So I wonder if there is a like a cognitive response bias here. Still, even if it were the middle, even if this was a 9-point scale and they had picked 5, that's still not saying I believe this is GPT. It's saying I'm like perfectly indifferent. I literally don't know. It's right in the middle. So I think it's extremely reasonable to construct a binary out of the 10-point scale by saying above, below 5. I think that's totally reasonable. And so people can't tell that it was written by GPT, which is a really interesting first result, I think. Really interesting first result. Let me grab this thread. So I'm going to go over here and I'm just collecting notes. We're just doing EDA. Exploratory data analysis. So GPT-4 paper MD. Okay, so here's next up. That's done. In progress. And then here I'll do some EDA notes. Paper 8 or doc 8 was written by GPT, a 4, but less than 27. Then 27% of people rated that as likely, where likely is 6 or more out of 10 on written by GPT-4 sub-question. N equals 1, that people can't tell when it's written by GPT. Related thread. What job is that? Cybersecurity? No, this is data science, or like research. So like academic research. Yeah, it's data science basically. Quality distribution. The mean was 6.7, suggesting high quality. Okay, so it's inversely correlated to being perceived by GPT, right? We might see an anti-technology bias here. Doc 8 perceived, Doc 8 average quality rating of 6.8, rounded, yeah, 677. Okay. Average quality rating of 6.8. So unlikely GPT and high quality go together for this paper. Anti-technology bias. Okay, need a multivariate regression to check across docs. Okay, so we're going to want to do some regression for sure. Median was 7 above the mean, indicating a left skew. Well, of course, there's going to be a left skew on a 10-point scale. Yeah, it's hard to skew right. There's no space to the right when it's high quality. How much do you make monthly? This is not my day job. So I make, I don't know, I make like 30 grand a month, I guess. But this is not my job. This is like an expensive hobby, basically. So the IQR is 6 to 8. So like, basically everyone thinks it's good. Okay. IQR from 6 to 8 and standard deviation of 1.7. So strong majority think it's high quality. Thanks for the follow. Where'd the 3 dots come from? That was weird. Okay. What else? What education level do they assign? What education level do respondents assign? Interesting. So it's assigned. So it's assigned a undergraduate to master's level rating. So it's calibrated. Basically calibrated between these two. Okay. Among PhD holders, what are the statistics for perceived quality, education level assigned, and likelihood of GPT authorship? Doc 8 calibrated at education level between undergraduate and master's level. So here we're basically picking on the case of Doc 8, and we might pick a second document and then branch out from there. The exact counts for each category vary per document. No, I'm talking about document 8. There were 5 responses for each document. I am interested in the case of document 8 only, the responses from PhD holders. Right. Well, the PhD holders were right in line with everyone else. Actually, the PhD holders assessed it as higher quality. Isn't that interesting? So here's a possible like people that are never graduated high school think too highly of PhD holders, basically. What's the difference between IT and cybersecurity? Well, an IT graduate does not make a living by hacking people. They are going to be fixing computers and stuff like that. Doc 8, looking only at PhD holders for Doc 8, doesn't move the needle. Although the standard deviation is smaller. The document is still assessed at a quality of 7 out of 10. Doesn't move the needle on quality. The document is still assessed at a quality of 7 out of 10, although the standard deviation is smaller. Notably, PhD holders assign a higher education level. None of them thought it was an undergraduate paper. None of them thought it was an undergraduate paper. Okay? Three assigned an education level of master's, and 2 assigned a level of PhD holder. Still, notable that most PhD holders did not consider Doc 8 to be of PhD level quality. Okay, so this is an interesting note, and now we want to find out about other documents. Consider, and so which documents are GPT authored? We have 8, 16. Let's look for GPT dash. 17, 18, 8, and 16. 17, 18, 8, and 16. Oh, do I have any active changes on the CSV? Let's create a new column. Yeah, basically we need to integrate topic and author effects now. How do we do this? Seems like we need a distinct map, basically. I can provide, okay, let's write, we're gonna make a script. Let's create a Python script which describes the map of documents to their author and paper topic. Okay, so 18 is good, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13. Here's 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and 5. Okay, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. And we'll just go through them, sort this by name. This is written by EduBirdie. Did I not have that one assessed? Where did I write down who wrote what? I guess that doesn't matter too much right now. I can figure that out later. But I am curious about the EduBirdie ones. In particular. Okay, here's the paper. Participant notification is the email name that I have a bunch of notes in. Oh yeah, well, it's my very top note, isn't it? Great. So in my markdown notes, review Google Doc section of Google Doc. And find tweeted paper from Patricia. Thanks for the follow. Let me make sure I'm not skipping any comments on YouTube. Okay, I don't see any over there. Quick reminder, if you're on TikTok, you can go over to YouTube or Twitch. Link is in my bio and see the full screen. Okay. Yeah, I can figure them out later. I might have to go into the website and read the text and map it that way. Oh, here's a fun question. So I am Jay, and I have a PhD. So could people tell that that was written by a PhD? That's a good question. We can just use the paper prefix IDs for now. Can I click and drag to grab these? I'm so lazy, y'all. I don't want to type anything. Can I just grab all the names? Copy. No. Okay. There's no way to simply copy the names. No, that's going to be ridiculous. Okay, so GPT is Austrian neoclassical. We can just call the topic Austrian neoclassical, and the author is GPT. 17, ask ChatGPT to output a list of the names. What do you mean? It doesn't know them. It doesn't know their names. LLM best practices. Best practices. Author is GPT. 16, so we're going to collate this by hand. That's fine. Macroeconomic health. Wait, the author there is GPT also? Okay. Macro health, author is GPT. What about 15? CW, LLM best practices. I think CW is custom writings. Not sure about that. We'll figure that out. I think that was one of these written for hire. 14 CW, macro health. Macro health, CW. 13, LLM best practices, CW. 13 is CW, isn't it? 13 is B. This really should be its own spreadsheet as well. The context is small enough to fit in a Python script. I think it's fine. So how can I map these over is what I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, I need to do some kind of matrix operation so that doc8 is no longer a column, but it's like a, what would it be? Yeah, I need to think about that some more. Okay, doc 12. So 12 and 11 are both B. 12 and 11 are both B. Macro health, remote work. 12 and 11 are both B. Macro health, remote work. Okay. And 13 was B, LLM best practices. Great. Only 10 more of these to go. EB, macro health. EB, macro health. EB, remote work on 9. EB, remote work. EB, remote work on 9.
Oh, I still have an hour. Would you want to share half a Celsius with me?
I have half a Celsius still. Thanks. Nice shirt. GPT, remote work on 8. GPT, remote work on 8. 7, P, remote work on 7. P, remote work on 7. T, remote work on 6. T, remote work on 6. Five is P, macro health. 5 is P, macro health. 4, J, macro health. 3, J, LLM best practices. 2, J2 is J, Austrian neoclassical. Austrian neoclassical. And 1 is B, Austrian neoclassical. 1 is B, Austrian neoclassical. Okay. Now I need to remember who actually has a PhD. I know. Oh, okay. EB is EduBirdie. It's all coming back to me now. Let's see. J and P have PhDs. Who is T? Looking through my email briefly. Okay, I think I will look at my participants that I emailed. Participant. I can figure out who T is later. So, yeah. Should this be a script or should this be a CSV? Let's do a CSV. Let's do a CSV because I might add more columns. Let's create a CSV. Which describes the map of documents to their author in paper topic. Whatever. One step at a time. So it's going to make a CSV and then I'll add another column. Add another column, which is author credentials. J, B, and P have PhD. EduBirdie. Let me look this up on the other tab. So, oh, actually, it might be right here. EduBirdie. Hey, look at that. Calculated values. Is article author response. Is principal investigator response. Those are not immediately relevant. EduBirdie. I guess it was in my email. EduBirdie doesn't explicitly call itself out as graduate level or higher. Appears to be targeted at college students. Okay, so paper writer and custom writings offer PhD as a distinct level compared to master's or graduate work. From EduBirdie, we have Professor Eddie, so-called Professor Eddie. So let's look here. Here I have two from, okay, there is another from Claire M. One is on remote work and one is on macro health. Okay, confirmed. So these EBs are in fact EduBirdie. Let's just call a spade at this point. Rename author EB to EduBirdie. And then are these done at the PhD level? Writers level, all levels. Writers level, all levels. Okay, it does not look like that one was PhD specific. And then here is writers level, all levels. So it's a distinct category. It's like unspecified, basically. Author author EduBirdie has author credentials. Any or like unspecified. Okay, looks good. So is there one, how many PWs are there? Is there one PW? Okay, it looks like we did not use this place paper writer at all, actually. Okay, that's fine. One, two, the other is custom writings. GPT-4 author should be unspecified education. Okay, they have two. One is a PhD student. So these are PhD student level. Okay. GPT author has author credentials unspecified. Rename author CW to custom writings. 3, custom writings has author credentials, paid PhD or like PhD student web service. Let's go ahead and keep those distinct, actually. GPT has author credentials GPT. EduBirdie has author credentials unspecified web service. That way we can distinguish the ones that are paid. Okay, download the CSV. So this will be like the author credentials map, author credentials data. Document data. Thanks for the follow. All right, let's look at this document data. 1 to 18, great. And so we know the credentials for everyone except T. I can confirm that here. Okay, let me actually read the paper. I'm going to pull this off the screen. The paper might actually specify internally T. Yep. Ooh. So I know who this is, and what is his education level? Yep, masters. Masters. Okay, what to do? What to do? Great. Okay. So what I would like to do is, given that the author actually had a PhD, what is the chance that people said they have a PhD? The sort of over under on that. So how do I represent that in the main CSV? Yeah, basically I need to do a series, like a series of regressions, and then I guess average across them. That one is weird to me. I should be able to do multivariate instead of averaging across models. Let me check in this data file, and then we'll ask GPT what it thinks. So feet, doc data. All right, so one of the interesting questions, let's outline some of the EDA questions. More EDA questions. One, do people think PhD holders have PhDs to an extent different than they think GPT has PhDs? Has a PhD, basically. Do people rate PhD holder papers higher than GPT? Does GPT perform worse on the Austrian question? One, two, three, four. And does it perform better on the LLM question? And what is the overall performance spread across questions? Answering the Econ niche question. Okay. Who won between handwritten web service, handwritten papers, GPT papers, and web service papers? Okay, I think that pretty much answers what we want. So far, we know. Oh, well, let's see. For Doc 8, people can't tell it it's GPT-4. For Doc 8, there may be an anti-tech bias demonstrated. For Doc 8, there is a like sort of PhD overvaluation effect. For Doc 8, PhD holders have a smaller standard deviation of quality estimated, but the quality estimate is still on par with population norm. So more EDA questions. 1, do all the Doc 8 findings generalize to other GPT papers? And then these other questions. Cool, so this is basically what we want to figure out, and then I think we'll be in a position to start drafting. So to answer these questions, let's go one by one. For Doc 8, GPT was the author, and yet less than 27% of respondents marked that as a likely fact. Does this generalize to other papers with GPT authorship? Let's find the following. 1, let's find the following. 1, we want to do a difference in means test, basically. The average likelihood that the average response likelihood that GPT wrote the paper across all papers that GPT actually did write. And 2, a difference in means test. How likely that GPT wrote the paper for all papers compared to the ones that it actually wrote. Okay, the average likelihood rating that GPT wrote a paper is 4.6. This suggests that on average, respondents rated the likelihood as moderately low. Awesome. And then the t statistic is negative. And what are the comparison groups? There is no significant difference. Fine, because you're giving me a high p-value. But what are the groups though? All papers and those actually written by GPT. Average response likelihood for documents actually written by GPT. Okay, so all is on the left here, and actually authored is on the right. So all is on the left, actually authored is on the right. So the T statistic, average GPT authored likelihood.
Did she tell you that? Well, probably because she thinks it wouldn't be appropriate.
Right, this is across all. Average GPT authored likelihood is across all 4.6 versus 4.63. So is it 4.63 in both cases? 4.63. That it actually wrote is 4.63. And what about all papers, whether it wrote them or not? This one. It looks like it's less. Let's confirm that. So it looks like the other was 5, like over 5. The average likelihood rating that respondents assigned to GPT across all is 4.9. Okay, so people are directionally right. So people are directionally right, but not significant. But it's not. But they're not. But it's not significant. Okay. Answers. The findings do generalize. In general, people think GPT-4 didn't write papers when it did. Notable that people are directionally correct, but not significantly accurate. A difference in means test shows that shows this. Okay. I'll need to phrase that better, but that's fine. 2, do people think that PhD holders have PhDs to a different extent than they think GPT has a PhD? Let's just outright ask it. It might be able to directly answer that. PhD holder, about 22% of the time, respondents perceive the education level. This is great. This is what we're looking for. Two, people can tell PhDs are smarter than GPT-4. That's the TLDR.
I'm gonna be heading out the next 10.
Okay. So people can tell PhDs are smarter than GPT-4. Do people rate PhD holder papers higher than GPT? It is so close, dude. This is wild. The average quality rating for a PhD holder is about 6.67. Okay, this is actually my main. This is like one way to express one of my main ideas that GPT-4 is underrated. Do people rate PhD holder papers higher than GPT on quality? So even though people can tell a PhD from GPT, the paper quality is about the same. And therefore, we would expect the publication to be similar. There are like intricacies around publication, like the way that you submit your paper and you add a cover letter and stuff like that. So GPT-4 like technically cannot submit a paper even if it wanted to, but the idea is that it can draft a paper that's basically like within a rounding. They round to the same number. They round to 6.7. Actually, like GPT quality is rated higher on average. Look at that. So even though you read the paper and you're like, yeah, that's AI generated, like you can tell it's AI generated. You're like, a PhD didn't write that. It's GPT-4. You can do that to some extent. There's like a 10% differential there. And I'm sure there's going to be bigger factors. The percentage of the time. Okay, so this is so interesting to me. So the general population, for the general population, there's a 10% signature differential, you might call it. But I think that signature differential could be smaller among PhD holders. That's something to investigate. All right, so we'll add that here. 7. Do people think PhD holders have PhDs? Do PhD holders do PhD holders rate PhD holder papers higher than GPT papers on quality? So the population, so GPT-4 papers and PhD holder papers rounded to the same level of quality on average, 6.7. However, before rounding, GPT-4 had a slight advantage. 6.71 versus 6.67. Are all of our PhD holders it's like what percent of our PhD holders have an econ degree? Do we know that? J, B, P, all three of those do. %60 of respondents. But on the author side, I think it's 100%. I mean, that's a notable finding. Yeah, everyone, I mean, not EduBirdie or custom writings or GPT, but all of the humans here have a post-secondary degree in economics. This is just a miscellaneous note, not attached to a particular question. 60% of respondents who hold a PhD also have a post-secondary degree in economics. 100% of the human authors have a post-secondary degree in economics. So this is not just comparing PhD papers and PhD holder papers. So this is not just comparing PhDs, it's in fact comparing econ PhDs. GPT-4 papers and PhD holder papers. This is not just comparing GPT-4 to a random PhD holder, but indeed to an econ to an econ PhD holder. That is a really that's a really big deal. GPT-4 papers and PhD holder papers rounded to the same level of quality on average. Okay, here's this. And what about 4? Does GPT perform worse on the Austrian question? Right, let's say right, perform worse means right with lower quality on the Austrian. let's assess relative to GPT scores on other papers and also on non-GPT scores for the Austrian question. The average quality rating is approximately 6.83 overall quality for Austrian question papers, including all authors.
All
right, love you. GPT authored papers on other topics, it's even better. And here it's inferior. So we confirmed it did worse talking about this niche.
Hey guys, please come sit.
I know some people who are going to be happy about those results. GPT-4 does worse than its own average and also worse than the average PhD holder. And I'm going to start saying Econ PhD holder. GPT-4 does worse than its own average and also worse than the average Econ PhD holder when discussing Austrian econ in particular. And more generally, this is a signal of continued weakness in niche topics. Does GPT write with higher quality on the LLM best practices question? Let's assess relative to GP scores on other papers and also to non-GPT scores. Oh, wow. He didn't just do worse than Econ PhD holders. He did worse than all other authors. Let's assess relative to GPT scores on other papers and also on non-GPT scores for this question. Not only did Econ PhDs outperform GPT for Austrian, all other authors did, regardless of PhD, like even paid services outperformed, even paid web services on this topic. Let's double check that. The average quality rating is 6.53 for all authors. Average quality rating is 6.68. Average quality rating is 6.8 for GPT authored LLM best practice. So it overperformed in this case. For LLM best practices, GPT-4 overperformed all other authors and also overperformed itself compared to other topics. So we confirm that topic, that research topic is importantly related to performance. Okay, and let's confirm this one, and then we're going to wrap up for now. Did GPT-4, how did GPT-4 perform in terms of quality compared to what are they called? Web service authors. Oh, hold on. Let me stop that. How did GPT perform in terms of quality compared to web service authors for the Austrian question? It appears there are no quality ratings available for the Austrian question. Okay.
Dad, there's treasure in the water bottle. Do you want to see what treasure is?
Sure.
Okay, so you have to dig it out. I'm not digging it out. Because I'm the one who made it.
The average quality rating for GPT-4 authored papers on the Austrian question was 6.2. What about the average performance from web service providers across all papers? Oh, okay. So we have a reason to think it's better than those. All right, y'all. Thanks for being here. And that's going to end the stream for now. Tune back in later, follow the page, and tune back in later, and we will start drafting later tonight.